Hi, so welcome to this edition of Sales Club. Today is Wednesday, first Wednesday in December. Typically, what I've done every year, and I've been doing this for God, almost 20 years now, um, actually 2006. So yeah, next year it'll be 20 years that I've been doing training. Every December, I do the 16 Barriers to Success, um, the habits of highly successful people, and goal setting with the intent to try and get you guys set up for the next year um, in really a good fashion. So it might not be as much sales techniques, but it just really these 3 sessions in December are all about getting you focused and set up correctly for the next year. And remember, everything that I do fits into one of these triangles. It's either regarding attitude, a training about attitude, it's about behavior, and about technique. And we talk about today's session and the rest of them for December are about attitude. Attitude is made up of how you feel about you, all right, your mind, your body, your spirit, how you feel about the company, and how you feel about the market. So today is really the tip of the triangle under attitude about how you feel about you. So what we'll talk about today is 16 different building blocks for success. What sometimes holds us back. There's a lot of motivational speakers, Zig Ziglar, Anthony Pernelli, Tony Robbins, and they all talk about positive motivation. And they really sometimes don't focus on what are those things organically within our life that hold us back. So as I go through each one of these sessions, all I want you to think about is, yes, I have this under control. No, this is something I need to work on. I'm not saying that all 16 of these things I'm going to go over fit and resonate with you. Some of them you might sit there and say, that's not an issue to me. Or one or two of them might come out and you say, you know what, for 2026, that's something I want to work on. So as I go through this, that's all I want you to do is each time I go through one of these points, I want you to think about, I have this under control. It's something I want to work on as I move forward. And then we'll talk about the anatomy of failure and your personal bill of rights. So that is our upfront contract or agenda for what we're going to go over today. And as always, what I encourage you to do is at any time you've got a comment, question, don't feel you have to wait until the last 10 minutes to ask. Go ahead and feel free to interrupt me. I'm okay with that. So number one, success barriers. Number one is we need to understand what's holding us back. Do we really start and analyze it and think about, review the things that hold us back? Is it that that Eeyore in the world, that person that you have that always tells you, oh, you can't do that, or boy, let me be the devil's advocate. Are there certain people that hold you back? Are there certain conditions and things that hold you back? So do you actually sit there and think about what's preventing me from being successful in anything it is that you want to do? Losing weight, being better at sales, better personal relationships. What is it that holds you back? Unsuccessful people don't take time to analyze what really is holding them back. So review the things that hold you back is the number one thing that you need to think about. Make a list. Make a list of those things you think that are holding you back and track them. Is it your own procrastination? You procrastinate, and why is it? Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Early in my career, I really struggled with cold calling and picking up the phone and just dialing for dollars. And there's some cartoons that are out there on LinkedIn right now that people are saying, the boss is telling people, well, just call him. The guy, I sent him an email. No, just call him. Well, I texted him. There are certain things that hold people back from making calls. And I started making lists. Why am I hesitant to call somebody? Why do I struggle to dedicate that time? Because once I do it, once I dedicate the time and I sit there at 10 o'clock, I'm going to make 20 dials, I do it. But just something holds me back from doing them. And what I've analyzed with my own mind is, and this is only going to resonate with people who are old enough to remember, when I was younger, we were told not to pick up the phone. The phone was for emergencies. The phone was, matter of fact, I lived out in the country early in my life, very young, where we still had party lines, where you pick up the phone and there'd still be somebody on there, like from the operator from Mayberry on Andy Griffith show. And I was convinced that we couldn't pick up the phone. The phone was for emergencies. I remember my older sister got a Princess phone. She got her own phone, and that was a big thing at that time to have your own phone. But I was conditioned by my mama not to pick up that phone because that phone was just for, emergencies or for my parents. It wasn't for us. And I started thinking about that. That's what's holding me back. It's this conditioning that I had that I shouldn't be on the phone or that I'm bothering people. A lot of people like to send text instead of pick up the phone to call somebody. And what they're thinking is, oh, the text they can take whenever they want. It's not interrupted. If I call them on the phone, they've got to stop what they're doing, pick up and answer the phone. So track what it is that's holding you back. And once I recognized that it was just a stupid conditioning from my childhood that was holding me back, then I started doing a little bit better making phone calls. The second thing that's holding me back, what holds most of back, and we'll later get to it, is procrastination. And procrastination comes from not having a systematic approach to a task. And so when I started thinking about what was holding me back is that I really didn't schedule time. I'll get around to it. Prospecting, I'll get to it. I'll make my phone calls when I have time. Instead of thinking the most important thing I do today is pick up that phone and make a couple of dials. And so I started thinking about that. So that's what you need to do, is think about what's holding you back. And that was just an example I wanted to give you. Now I want you to think about, do you have this under control, or is this something you need to work on? Is that you don't really understand what holds you back from the behaviors that you want to do? What is it? So you got to recognize it first. So again, just put that in the back of your mind. If you're following me on this, just write down, yes, I have understanding what's holding me back under control, or that's something in 26 that I want to work on. Okay. Number two, what holds people back is neglecting your health. Letting yourself fall into bad health habits, such as eating poorly, not exercising, or getting enough sleep, will leave you mentally and physically exhausted, stressed, and prone to illness. These can have real impacts on your ability to perform because you're really less likely to focus and be productive when you don't feel well. So remember the importance of taking time to enjoy life. If you're so busy working hard and taking life too seriously, you're probably missing out on everything else. So again, the line I have is, do you work to live, or do you live to work? Which one is it for you? Early on, all right, I will tell you that I was more like work focused early on in my career. Most work, and less about family. I remember my wife one time 20 years ago got really frustrated. We were supposedly on vacation down in Orlando, Florida, and I took a phone call from the office and found out that things were going bad, and I cut our vacation short because I thought that was the priority. That was most important, instead of thinking about, I need to recharge my battery. The problem's still going to be there when I come back in 2 or 3 days. Going back, grabbing a flight to go back early doesn't really change things. But again, it's your mentality of, are you really healthy enough? Have you charged your batteries? Do you do the things, even daily, to just meditate, whatever it is you have to do to decompress, take time so that you're more productive. Early or this year, I listened to a speaker who said everybody should take a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's ridiculous. You can't take a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I started working with a company. I'm working with a company that sells products to Harley Davidson, and they're in Italy. And we were trying to make the time when to do a Zoom call. And the person in Italy, when I made the time, I says, well, what, if it's 2 o'clock my time, what time is that? You guys are 6 hours or 7 hours earlier. That's in the evening. Would that work? And he said, oh no, not 2 o'clock. We're on siesta. If anybody's ever been out to Italy or some of these foreign countries, they have holiday. They take time and they take a break during the middle of the day. In America, we've got this, we think that we're so proud of our work ethic that we work, these 10-hour days, and that might be, but we're not as productive as other countries who take shorter work periods, but take time to take breaks. So I'm suggesting that, is that something you have to under control? Do you just work so hard that you're exhausted by the end of the day? Or are you pacing yourself and taking care of your mental and physical health? So that's number two. Do you have that under control? Is that something to work on? Number three is shifting blame. This is what holds a lot of people back. This is a barrier to success. It's tempting to shift blame off on your own shoulders to somebody else. In fact, it's natural to want to attribute shortcomings to someone else or some other circumstances. You know, I had a friend in college. We used to laugh at Ellis because he always his response was, "I'm a victim of circumstances. I'm a victim of circumstances." You know, instead of making excuses, you should start to take action. Stop looking for reason why it isn't your fault and consider what changes you should make to fix a problem. No matter what the circumstances have, you have total control of your actions. You can't always control how you feel, but you can always control how you act. So, are you doing the right behavior so that you can turn a negative into a positive? Is this something you have to work on? Are you constantly doing the if only? And I'm not sure if it's on this slideshow or not. It might be redundant later on. If is very important. The word if, because a lot of people, if only she had done this, if only he had done that, if only this had happened, if only that, and you're externalizing the if. Do you do that? Do you put the if only they, if only this had happened, or do you put the if on you? If the if is, if only I would take responsibility for my actions, if only I would start to set up a systematic approach to sales, if I would only do a systematic approach to prospecting, things will turn out better. So if is very important. Are you using if to shift blame to somebody else or to other circumstances, or are you putting the if on yourself? So again, is this something that you have under control or would like to work on in 26? Okay. Low self-esteem. You know, this is one of the things, there's certain people that just have a low self-esteem. Probably nobody on this call, but you know of other people, and you don't like yourself to one degree or another. So think about it this way. If you don't like yourself, I used to get a kick out of girls in high school when I was, a popular word was, oh, he's so conceited. And I don't know if they were describing me or somebody else, but it's conceited, meaning, boy, that person really likes themselves. Well, if it's false praise, obviously it's wrong. But you know, what would you do for somebody that you didn't like? You wouldn't do much, would you? So it becomes a spiral. The less you do, the less you like yourself, which means the less you do. It just keeps, that's a vicious cycle going on. So do you have low self-esteem because you don't like yourself, because you haven't done the behaviors you know were necessary for the things you had to do? So the only way to increase your self-esteem is to do the behaviors that you think you should or know you should be doing. So that's number four. Do you have this under control, or is that something you need to work on? And also put this slide up there for somebody you are mentoring or somebody that you're helping. That you need to help them recognize that if somebody just is the Eeyore of the world, the sky is falling, nothing's my fault. You know, part of that is what creates that vicious cycle that they get in. They get into this pattern of doom and gloom, then they don't like themselves because they didn't do the behaviors they were supposed to do, which then means that they don't like themselves, which means they don't do more behaviors, and it just becomes this vicious cycle. So for 2026, think about that. Is this something that you can help somebody else with? Not necessarily yourself, but even somebody else.
Would
Unsix- Go ahead.
would imposter syndrome be under that low self-esteem?
Help me understand what's your definition of imposter syndrome. Talk to me.
Oh, when somebody calls me an expert in design and I'm just kind of in my head, I'm like, am I? Am I winging it? Or, you know, I mean, I know what
Uh,
I'm doing, but at the same time, I see so many other people that are such good designers, and I feel like they're far superior to me. You know, that whole thing, is that low self-esteem or is that something completely different?
So that's a great analogy that I use. I had a friend of mine in Indianapolis, a trainer there, who he always called, he'd say, are we posers? Or are we a poser? And he actually did an exercise with everybody in the room. He had everybody in the room point to somebody and say, you suck, you suck, you suck. And then it would point to you and you'd say to yourself, now look at my hand. He says, so when you're pointing at somebody else and you're telling them they suck, you have three fingers pointing back at you. And so say it to yourself, do you suck? Am I, and again, once in a while you sit there and say, I suck, I suck. No, I don't. I really am good. I'm really a great designer. There's nothing wrong with saying, Janelle, you're a great designer. But for some reason, we have been conditioned that that's conceited or that we shouldn't do false praising of ourselves. Well, if somebody else isn't going to do it, who else is? So you might as well do it yourself. So I think that, going back to this previous slide is we have low self-esteem because we were told we shouldn't brag. We shouldn't boast. I don't think we should boast to others, but there's nothing wrong with boasting to yourself. Even if you think about the old Saturday Night Live skit, Stuart Smalley, my God, I'm good. People like me. If you don't like yourself, you're just not going to do much for yourself. So I hope that kind of think about it. But again, that exercise that Tim did for Indianapolis was you suck, you suck. And it got to be funny because we were all 20 people in the room, all pointing at each other, you suck. And then he said, now stop and look, who are you really pointing at? You're pointing at 3 times more at yourself. And once we started realizing that, hey, I don't suck, but I do suck because I didn't do this, or I did do that, or I did this incorrectly, you start realizing that sometimes you know how good you are, other people don't know how good you are. But if you don't recognize it, how are you ever going to convince somebody else that you're good at what you do? So, all right, 5, unsuccessful people allow economic conditions to hold them back. Unsuccessful people spend an inordinate amount of time worrying about how much money they don't have. They get mixed up in the conceptual problem. Being broke is a condition, while being poor is a state of mind. And there's a big difference between the two. All right, so let me give you the story that kind of works with this one. So back in 1992, when I was fired by Jerry Lewis from work for Musker Dishby, he called me in one day and said, hey, after the telethon, Wayne, you need to go find another job. Here I'm all of a sudden, I'm broke. Now, what I didn't tell you is a week before, my wife and I had closed on our first house, right? So, and the realtor kind of screwed up on what we thought the closing costs would be. And to be able to close on the house, I had to take all the last $5,000 I had in savings and put it into the closing costs. So now I had a $1,600 mortgage, no savings, no job. Okay. I had to deal with General Motors Finance Company. If they couldn't find my car, they couldn't have it. Because and I don't know if anybody's ever been that way. I had to go around and park my car 2 blocks away, cut through neighbors' yards because I didn't want to park my car in my driveway where the repo guy could find it. But my point is, was I broke or was I poor? Broke, it was a temporary condition, a financial condition. But I wasn't poor. I had the love of a fantastic wife. I had a family to support me. I had ability to go make money somewhere else. And some people get mixed up and they consider economic conditions control their destiny. Unsuccessful people allow economic conditions to hold them back. Oh, I don't want to go start that new division. Oh, I don't want to start this new business. Oh, I don't want to do this. Timing's not right. The economy sucks. I get a kick out of right now where a lot of people, because they're unsure about the economy, they're unsure about the market. Val probably appreciates this much as far as in real estate. People aren't moving forward. Interest rates are 5 to 6%. My first house interest rates was 14%, and we were happy to get it. So a lot of people are held back and don't move forward because of economic conditions instead of thinking about the what ifs. What if I go ahead and I move forward and I am successful? Unsuccessful people think, what if I fail? We're successful people, yeah, but what if I succeed? So which is it? Do you have this under control? Do you allow circumstances or conditions you have absolutely no control over to dictate your future? Or is this something that you need to work on? All right, 7 or 6 rather, undefined goals or no goals. This is what cracks me up when I'm doing a training for some new salespeople. I'll ask them, other than your sales goals, can you show me what your goals are? Your personal goals, your financial goals, your business goals, your personal development goals. Do you have goals? And everybody will say, oh yeah, I've got goals. Where are they? Oh, they're in a drawer somewhere. They're down in the file cabinet. And it's amazing to me. Many people have an idea, concept, or dream that they want to turn into reality. But without a firm plan and a clear vision, you have no way of achieving anything. So defining your goals is the first step toward making them happen. It's about creating a roadmap that will guide you. Without a plan to pull you into the future, you can easily go off course without even knowing it. So the last session we'll do of the year, I think, trying to think the third Wednesday the month. Next week we will do the habits of successful people. And then the following Wednesday before Christmas, what we will do is goal setting to get you started for the next year. So I'll spend a little bit more time on how to do goal setting. Unsuccessful people are held back by not having these goals. You know, people who do a good job of goals, both short term and long term, and are gutsy are the most successful people. You know, goals, think about it this way, goals or dreams, they either are active or passive. And if you haven't heard me say it before, an active goal you can answer by this question: can I and will I do the necessary behaviors to turn this goal into a reality? If that's true, if you say, yes, I will do the necessary behaviors to turn the goal, now it's an active goal for training. But if it's a passive one, if you say, no, I probably won't do the extra calls, I won't do the extra work I need to do, why even have it as a goal? It's not really a goal. It's just a pipe dream. And successful people have a really big woody woofy. Now, before anybody, what the heck's a woody woofy? Woody woofy stands for what do you want for yourself? Successful people have a really big woody woofy. And what do you want for yourself? Okay. Now, do you have just a basic standard of performance? A basic standard of performance is what do I need just to survive? What do I need financially just to pay my bills? What do I need in relationships with people? What do I need just to survive? Which is your basic standard of performance. And most people, I'd say 80% of most people, work just to their basic standard of performance. But successful people work to their standard of excellence to be a winner, the nice to have income, the recognition they're looking for, the security, dreams for the future. Really successful people understand that they need to have a really big woody woofy, what they want for themselves. And if you want to add it, what they want for themselves and their family. So do you have a big woody woofy? So let me give you a couple of examples of how you can make this decision. How big is your woody woofy? Kennedy, some of you are probably too young, but President Kennedy in September of 1962 made three speeches in the same day. And the one that was recorded was the one down in Houston, where he said, by the end of this decade, we will successfully send a man to the moon and bring him back. People forget that sometimes. He said that not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Kennedy had a really big woody woofy. He needed this country, who was trapped and actually at that time wasn't doing well in the Cold War. We were kind of stuck in the mud and we weren't moving forward as much as he wanted. He knew that he had to create a huge woody woofy for the country for us to shoot for. And so that's why he came up with the big idea of we will go to the moon. Now, even his top advisors were telling him, no, we don't have the technical ability at this point to it. In 8 years, we will successfully land a man on the moon and bring him back. But Kennedy had this really big woody woofy. And the real story is that on May 16th of that year earlier, he had proposed a joint space program with Russia, and it was rejected by Congress. 2 weeks later, he asked Congress to increase NASA's budget from, at that time, think about this, NASA's budget was $5.4 million, and it was rejected. But in September 1262, he created this great big woody woofy, we will go to the moon, and he changed the course of our country. Think about it. Kennedy's big idea created the largest increase in the request for admission to engineering schools our country had ever seen. NASA's budget grew from 5.4 to over $1 billion in 1 year, and over 1,200 consumer products were developed or enhanced due to the space race because of Kennedy's big idea. And some of you remember them like WD-40, weather detergent number 40. it had been around since the early 50s. It was developed to help the nuclear missiles that were in San Diego were corroding from the salt air. And so they were trying to come up with some type of a solvent that would stop them from rusting and corroding. And WD-40 came up with that. And it just sat on the years. They tried to make it a commercial product. But once it was shown and used for the Saturn rockets, all of a sudden it became a commercial viable product, even though it's been around since the 50s. So again, it was created by Norm Larson in 53, but it became the first commercially available on store shelves in 58, but never really caught on until NASA promoted it. It's a little bit of history, so you'll probably win a trivia contest somewhere if you see this. Velcro, any idea when Velcro was created? Anybody? Anybody know about it? The history of Velcro? Well, Velcro actually was invented in 1948 by a Swiss electrical engineer. He'd actually gone out hunting with his dog, and his dog had a lot of burrs in it. And he looked under the microscope and he saw the hook and loop concept of how the burrs stuck on the dog. And so he actually came up with, at that time, he marketed it as the zipperless zipper and started making clothing with it. But it never really caught on, Velcro did, until the Today Show featured John Glenn wearing a spacesuit, because with the spacesuit, with the big gloves that they had to wear, they couldn't reach into their pockets and get food and things like that with big gloves because they couldn't unzip the zippers. So Velcro was used to hold things in, and instead of floating up with without gravity in space, they used Velcro in the pockets. So it started to become more viably used because of Kennedy's Woody Woofy, his big idea. Tang, same thing with Tang. Most kids that grew up in the 60s, heard about Tang powder. Actually, Tang was developed by the same scientist who came up with Jello when he was trying to find rush food that they could take as far as food that would be able for the soldiers to take out in the field. So actually Mitchell created that a long time ago. But again, until Kennedy's big idea and the NASA program in the 60s, it never really caught on. It became a commercially viable product in the mid 60s. This was a great one that might have seen, if anybody's seen the bit on Seinfeld about the writing in the pen upside down. It's an old Seinfeld episode. But what they found is there was an issue with that they couldn't, the pens, because of gravity, wouldn't write up in space. Now, in 1953, Paul Fisher invented a universal refill pen, which could be used in space, and that they could write upside down when the astronauts were writing. It wasn't necessarily gravity fed. And NASA paid him $1.5 million to refine his pen so that they could use it in space. Russians faced the same problem. What do you think they came up with? Anybody? The pencil. We spent $1.5 million for the same thing that somebody else came up with, the pencil. Okay. So it just shows you how somebody's big idea can be translated into money. The cordless drill was actually invented in 1895, but until the space program needed a drill up in space, that it not ever was refined enough to get a suitable battery for it. But because of Kennedy's big idea, we now all have cordless ideas and instruments, drills. So again, do you have a big Woody Woofy to help your project take wings? What is the thing that you can do in 2025 that, it might be a goal that's so far out here, you might not achieve it, but what could you accomplish along the way? And that's why I'm trying to do a little bit of motivational pushing, give you some historical contents so you can think about what is it you've had on your back shelf? What idea, what thought, whether it comes to what you were going to try prospecting to go get new clients, what things that you've thought of in the past, but you were just held back from it because you thought, well, maybe it won't work. Again, the goal is to point you in the right direction. Do you push towards something that, although I might not achieve it, I might gain all these other benefits along the way? So come up with a big Woody Woofy if you think about it. Successful people have a big Woody Woofy. If you think about this, the analogy I use for being a pilot and flying, are you ready to fly? Because the concept of how an airplane works basically is lift is created, by the airfoil, the shape of the wing. As the air is going through, it's the angle of attack, and a little bit pressure is always trying to equalize. So the air at the bottom is going at one speed, but the air that has to go across the top is trying to catch up with that air below. And so that creates pressure. And pressure creates lift. And as long as an airplane, if lift is greater than weight and thrust is greater than drag, it'll fly. That's simple speaking. What the Wright brothers figured out, basically. So what holds us back is our fear of failure. All right. But what lifts us is the behaviors. Are you doing the right behaviors? Are you making the cold calls? Are you doing the marketing efforts? Are you doing working your wheel of fortune like Deborah and Mark and I talked yesterday? Are you doing the behaviors you need that can, if you're doing so many behaviors, they'll lift you up and will be greater than that fear that you have. So again, our fear of failure is that weight that drags us down. Our fear of, I don't want to try that, that might not work. For 2026, have some big woody woofy that can thrust you forward. And that's your goals or your woody woofy. So this is that slide I use to kind of help people think about, why am I setting goals? Some people say, I don't want to set that goal because I might not achieve it. Kennedy wasn't sure we'd achieve that we would actually send a man to the moon and bring it back safely by the end of the decade. We did with 6 months to spare. But even if we hadn't, what if we had to wait another year? Look at all the benefits and all the things that we accomplished along the way anyway. So that's what I want you to think about for 26. Are you setting goals? Are you working forward? Unsuccessful people just don't have any goals. They're just trying to do that, get through the life. So again, goals point you in the right directions. And again, active goals are attainable, they promote action, and they're reality-based, where a passive goal is chance-oriented, it's whimsical, it promotes inactivity, and it's fantasy-based. So make sure you set goals that are really active goals. So can I and will I do the necessary behaviors to turn my goal into reality? If you answer yes, it's an active goal. If you answer no, it's passive. But in order for your dreams to be achieved, I want you to remember the acronym SMART. Remember, they have to be visible, they have to be specific, they have to be time conscious, and they have to be frequently evaluated. So when you're sitting there making your goals, your New Year's resolutions, whatever you do, just don't put them in a drawer somewhere. Don't keep them up here. Write them down, put them on a board, have them in front of you. I used to do an exercise at my weekly classes, dream boards, where actually people bring in their magazines, we do collages, and you do your dream board. And some people loved it, some people hated it because they thought it was like a high school art project. But I find that the people that I go back to that did a dream board and actually came up with what their goals are and had a visual representation of what they're trying to achieve actually achieved them. Where the people that didn't and didn't participate didn't reach any of their goals. All right, let's move on. We got a few more to cover through here. So being realistic, giving up on your dreams. Unsuccessful people hear people say, you can't do that. That's unrealistic. And they give up on their dreams. You give up your dreams. You've not learned to dream. You live day to day. You live in the here and the now instead of having that passion for what might happen months, a year from now, or whatever. So are you giving up on your dreams? Have you quit on that goal that you had? Or are you still thinking and figuring out a plan on how to get there? Successful people understand how to take risks too. They don't look for guarantees. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. If I'm driving down the road and I see off the side a pond on the side of the road, and in that pond, somebody is struggling going down for the third time, icy cold, like today here in Colorado, it's cold. Is it a risk for me to stop my car and jump in and try and save that person? Yeah, it's a risk because I might not be able to swim. I might get hypothermia, whatever it is. It's a risk for me to risk that person. But if before that person goes down for the third time, he yells out, "Dad, help me," and it's my son, is it a risk now? there is no risk now. I have no choice. And that's successful people understand the difference between taking a risk. They don't look for guarantees. You know, most people aren't risk takers, but reality says there's really no guarantees. You must learn how to understand what a risk is. Will you take the risk of rejection sometimes by walking into a company or construction site and try and, you know, take out of thin air and create a lead? Or are you afraid to take that risk because you're afraid of rejection? And that's what holds a lot of salespeople back. They're afraid, they don't understand risk. They don't take, they don't do the extra behaviors. They don't do their Wheel of Fortune activities. They don't do the cold calls. They don't do the networking. They don't do the walk and talkings because the risk is they might get rejected. Where successful people, they don't look for guarantees. Yeah, they might get rejected, but that's not that big of a risk because reward, they look at that reward as being so much better. You know, we can get paid a lot of money in sales because we will do something that most people can't. And that is we'll take the risk of rejection. And that's why we make money in sales. Where, you know, if it was a guarantee, we wouldn't have to pay so much. So successful people understand risk. They don't look for guarantees. So again, think about risk. Taking risk is a really scary proposition for many people. You know, after all, stepping outside with one's comfort zone, taking a leap of faith can really invite failure. But if you think about people like Bill Gates and Branson and Larry Ellison and these people that actually were very successful, they didn't really worry about the risk. They understood that with great risk comes the possibility of great reward. So what is it that you need to step outside your comfort zone to do? Because the reward is really going to offset any risk that you're going to take. Because it's really this fear of failure. I mean, this is a mug that my staff got me years ago where it said failure is not an option. Actually, it is, isn't it? Failure is an option. Can you think of anything that you've done in your life that was really worthwhile, that you were immediately successful at it? Probably not. Probably even if you had some moderate success in a sport activity and something that you ended up being very good at, you still probably weren't really great at it to begin with. I get a kick. I even use the analogy of people, kids learning how to walk. I mean, when our kids learn how to walk, they start to crawl first, and then they get up to the footstool, or they get up to the table, and they balance, and they stand on their 2 feet for a little bit, and they wobble for the lit, and they take a step forward, and they fall. The parents don't get there and say, "You idiot, don't you know how to do this?" A kid falls, we go, "Hey, great, you almost did it. You tried, yay." We encourage failure, all right? But for somewhere along the line, as a society, we started to look at failure as a negative. Failure is going to happen. It is that, do you really learn from failure? All right. Because it can be a positive instead of a negative. It cannot be ignored, but you must turn it into a positive experience and learn from it. Successful people, they don't have that fear of failure. They look at failure as just a learning opportunity. So is this something you have under control? Is this something that the way that your mindset is? So as you think about what you want to do in 2026, are you thinking that, well, what if I fail? Or are you thinking, well, yeah, I might fail, probably will, but I'll learn along the way. And the anatomy of failure is, I guess, kind of like Wayne Dwyer did in his book of Understanding Death. First thing is disbelieve. Your mind will deny. You can't accept it. The first step after failure, shaking, I can't believe this really happened to me. Then fear sets in, where fear is great. It's a survival mechanism to get your juices running. Then maybe sometimes even angry. You're angry at the world, or you're angry at that other person. You do the shifting of blame to somebody else. I would have been successful if this had happened. I would have successful if somebody else, and you get angry. And then despair, you start worrying about, God, I spent all this time working on this project and I failed at it. But then finally, and you got to go through all these steps, finally acceptance, where you accept the responsibility for your failure and you get back in touch with your feelings and reality and can move forward from it. So just understand you're going to go through these. That's the anatomy of failure that I said on the second slide that we had that I would go over. And again, you learn to understand yourself. You've learned a lot about really what it is that causes failure. Was because you didn't plan well enough. You didn't do the behaviors you had to do, or you overestimated your own abilities. You learn to adopt that new attitude toward decision making and inherent risk in it. You reorder your priorities and what are the things that you want to work on and what are new priorities you need to work on. But again, what happens is you end up strengthening your gut system. You have a choice, either suck it up, suck your thumb, or get on with your life. And that's what most successful people do. Unsuccessful people, they allow failure to hold them back and they're resigned to, well, that's just my fate. So understand and know your rights. One of the things successful people in sales, and this specifically to salespeople, successful people understand their own personal bill of rights, and that is you have the right to your dreams. You have a right to do and want the things that you want. You have a right to like yourself as you are and not hope that people change you. All right. But you have the right to change if you want to, and you have a right to fail. These are your personal rights. You have this personal bill of rights. What we sometimes unsuccessful people do is they allow other people to dictate these terms to them instead of you don't have a right to fail. You need to change what you're doing. You don't have a right to that dream. You don't have a right to those wants. You have these rights. These are your own personal bill of rights that you have. You have the right to be imperfect. You have the right to choose. You have the right to ask people. You know, this is one that most salespeople forget. You have a right to ask somebody, hey, would you like to have a meeting next week to talk about whether my product or service can help you? Hey, would you like to move forward on this? What would you want me to do next? Most salespeople pitch, they just present. They don't ask for the sale. They don't ask, how did I help you? Most salespeople think that, boy, my product or service has got all these benefits and features that if I lay them out there and I do a good presentation, the client will naturally say yes. But many people need to be asked. You need to have that ability to ask the right questions. You have the right to decide how you will use your time and energy. These are your personal bill of rights. 10, successful people don't allow a mediocre standard of performance from yourself or those around you. If you have around people who don't have high standards, get rid of them. There's enough negative influence already out there. Associate only with success-oriented people. Unsuccessful people kind of hang out with other unsuccessful people because at least it makes them look better. And so, I don't have a really strong relationship with my younger sister because, quite frankly, if I spent time with her, she was, and I called her Eeyore. She's the Eeyore of the world. The sky is falling. It's not my fault. The world sucks. All these, everything just drained energy out of me to spend time with her. In life, if there's people that you have that drain you because they're so emotional about things and they take some things so personal, get away from those people. Remember this last line: associate only with other success oriented people. Don't try and measure yourself, well, I'm better than at least that guy. Well, you don't want to be like that unsuccessful person. But unsuccessful people tend to hang around with other successful people. 11, successful people, once they decide, commit to a choice, they play full out. So again, once you have made a choice and you're totally committed to whatever goal it is you're going to do for 2026, play full out. And this comes from, I was in just for a little bit of time in the Army before they released me because they couldn't keep up my original promise where they were going to assign me. But everybody was nervous as we got on the bus to go down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, to go to basic training. I remember everybody was scared, looking at each other, what this going to be like when you were. And the sergeant got on the bus, and instead of chewing everybody out and doing what you think you see, he says, "Hey, look, I just want to tell you guys how things work around here. As long as you play full out in everything we do, you'll be fine. I mean, I don't care if we're doing a 20-mile hike or we're just doing 20 yards across the cloud to go to the mess hall for lunch. As long as everything you do full out, you play full out, you'll be fine." So again, are you playing full out? Are you playing full out, or are you only playing halfway? Are you only doing halfway commitment? So successful people, once they commit to something, they're in it 100%. Part of that is 11A is inaction. Procrastination is the quicksand of accomplishment. So with many distractions out there, it's really easy to get suckered into inaction and complacency. And failure to move forward will lead to that stagnation. So if you're afraid of taking the next step, you'll eventually be overtaken by the inertia and the indifference. At some point, you need to stop planning and start doing. I remember the great line, if some of you have seen the movie The Shawshank Redemption, where he says, either get busy dying or get busy living. And that's time. And that's what I'm hoping I accomplish with you guys this month, is that instead of every year doing a New Year's resolution or do goal setting, and by February you've given up on them, that you actually have a full commitment to play full out in 2026. 12, are you waiting for the right time? A lot of unsuccessful people refuse to jump into the fray until it feels like the right time. And you spend a lot of your time as a bench warmer sitting on the bench waiting for other things to happen. It's one thing to calculate risk by watching the economy or taking time to fine tune your skills, but don't let that fear stop you from moving forward. And if you never start, you'll never succeed, obviously. So successful people, they measure the right time, but they don't continue to just procrastinate and sit on the bench. Have a timeline. Now, this was a little bit different that I want you to think about. Let's say today is the timeline. And what I want you to think about, whatever goal that you want to accomplish, is going to be a 1 year goal, 2 year goal, whatever is your big woody woofy. Think about it this way. This is a quote from Senator Everett Dirksen, former senator in Illinois. Yesterday is gone forever. Tomorrow is yet to be. Your destiny lies today with thee. What I mean by that is successful people, they don't have a timeline that goes back about what happened 2 months ago, 2 years ago, 2 decades ago. They're thinking about what's happening today and what I need to do to move forward. So do you have a timeline for your woody woofy? Remember, we talked about SMART. Goals need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time conscious, time bound. So whatever woody woofy you create for yourself, make sure you put a time schedule on, just like Kennedy did, that we will successfully send a man to the moon and bring him back by the end of the century. So, or the end of the decade. So do the same thing. This is what holds a lot of people back, is resignation. One is willing to surrender the current state of affairs and claim the things as they are. They've given up. This is it. I've come this far. I'm resigned to my fate. There's nothing left for me to do. The sky is falling. I mean, that just immediately stops somebody from moving forward. This is the way it's going to be. I'm victim of circumstances, like my friend Ellis. They don't think about, what I need to do to move forward. They don't do the necessary behaviors. They're just resigned to their certain fate. And I have run into people that, hey, that's just the way it is. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to live out the way it is. Quite frankly, I don't understand how those people can live. I just don't understand how somebody can just be okay with status quo. Again, how to have that healthy self-esteem is you need to identify the negative beliefs you have about yourself and then challenge them. You need to tell yourself that, stop saying that I'm too stupid to apply for this job, or nobody cares about me. To start to note these negative thoughts and write them down on a piece of paper in a diary. Now, whether you journal, again, that's one of the biggest things I think most people should do, is journal. Ask yourself when you started to think these negative thoughts. And I'm not going to be a liar. I have my journals right with me. I carry them in here. I journal every day, and what I journal about is about activities that I said I was going to do, and did I accomplish them? Did I do the things that I said I was going to do? Whether it's this week, I'm going to work on doing better, strong up for contracts. Am I going to do a better job at talking about money? Am I doing the behavior? So again, here's my journals. I got 3 of them now, and I can go back and I can look at, each day and said, hey, last week I said I was going to work on better getting to the decision maker. And I wrote it down. And at the end of the week, I'm able to sit there and say, yes, I did a better job of asking, hey, who ultimately makes the decision to move forward or not? So again, you create a healthy self-esteem by writing things down. Again, it's called kinesthetic learning. For some reason, when you write something down, it goes down your arm and up into your brain. And even though you might not have referred to it for months, you wrote it down and it kind of locks in your brain. It's kind of like How many of you actually, in your textbooks in school, you would highlight them and maybe never go back to them again? But because you did the highlighting, you kept that one passage stronger in your brain and creates a healthy self-esteem by at least noting to yourself what it is that you want to work on.
Hey, Wayne, can I mention something on that? I find it very interesting that you're talking about journaling because I just started listening to the book Building a Second Brain this morning. And that he's talking about how he had a health issue that he just couldn't figure out. He was going to all these specialists and getting all these meds. And it wasn't until he started writing everything down and taking notes of what it was that he could go back and look through and figure it out. And he talked about having a journal being an extension of your brain so that you can actually look back on your thoughts and figure things out. And then, I mean, it's going to be, just the first 10 minutes.
Again, in case anybody wants to look it up.
I'll tell you the author too. It's Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte.
Okay. Heard of it, haven't read it yet, but I think I'll need it.
Yeah, but it fits right in with that and journaling and just.
Again, journaling is one of the things where people think of it as a diary, like a high school teenage girl writing it. No, journaling is just writing down what behavior you want to get better at, and then tracking, did you work on it? Because you wrote it down at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, maybe you accomplished it because, again, you focused on it instead of just, write it down.
And I love that thought process on it. I've never thought of it that way. And now you're my second witness.
I help endorse what he's already writing about. That's good. All right, 14. Unsuccessful people need approval and outside motivation. I get a kick out of when I've gone to do sales trainings. And as I'm walking back to my car after training a company where some salesman will follow me and say, Wayne, let me tell you what it's really like around here. My boss just doesn't motivate me. And I'm thinking, why does your boss need to motivate you? Shouldn't you be motivated for the desire just to do a good job, to make money for you and your family, to leave your client in a better condition? Why do you need your boss to motivate you? Or you seek approval and don't see your profession as a means just really designed to get you to the bank to meet your financial needs. You get mixed up and use employment as a place to get your approval needs satisfied. You need your manager to motivate you. You don't have a personal mission statement. Any successful company, I guarantee you that almost every Fortune 500 company has a mission statement. A mission statement is one of those things you're supposed to be able to look back at and say, whatever decision that we need to make as a company, how does that fit into our mission statement? And if a company has a mission statement, why don't you have a personal mission statement? So one of our trainings that we'll do on goal setting at the last Wednesday of the month, we'll go through an exercise to teach you how to build a personal mission statement. And my mission is for the mutual benefit and advancement of those with whom I sympathize and deem worthy of my regard. I resolved to find opportunity to use my extemporaneous speaking ability to teach, educate, and entertain others on the benefits of learning professional development skills. Sales management is a noble and honorable profession, and I will not turn anybody away that wants to learn. I believe that I can most successfully accomplish my personal objectives of creating long-term security for my family through a balance of passion and commitment to my profession. And I will teach you guys how to write a mission statement like that. So if I have to make any decisions in my life, they all fit back into here. And what I mean by that, if somebody came to me and said, Wayne, I heard wonderful things about your training. I'd love to get into your training. I just started my business. I can't afford it. I won't let money get in the way. I mean, I have a couple of cases of Sky vodka in my garage because although I wouldn't let money away, I'd say, what do you got? What do you have? Well, I'll do a trade. I need that person to have some skin in the game, if you will. But I won't turn anybody away that wants to get better at sales. And that's my personal mission statement. And I want to make it so affordable that people can afford to be in it. So if you know anybody that needs sales training and you thought, well, I didn't want to refer them to Wayne because they can't afford it, we'll figure out something because it fits within my mission statement of to help people. And so there's an exercise I'll teach you as far as like, hey, if I only had 3 people I can invite to dinner, who would that person be? What are the traits of those people? And it's an exercise to get you to come up with the adjectives and the verbs and things and how to create your own mission statement for what you're trying to accomplish in your life. So we'll work on that on the 17th of the month. Unsuccessful people
they listen to that devil's advocate. You get that person that's on your like, well, let me be the devil's advocate. You tell somebody what your big woody woofy is, what it is that you want to accomplish. You want to gain more um, income over the next year so that you could save money and create your own small business, whatever it is. And then you get that friend that, well, let me tell you what let me play the devil's advocate. Right now is not a good time to start a business. And you listen to that person because you need to understand other people want to hold you back. Because if you're here and you're trying to get here, what that means is you're leaving them behind. So many times, even though they sound like they're trying to help you, they don't want you to be successful because the more successful you are, the less successful they feel. Now, I know that's a terrible way to think about it, but there are people that don't want you to be that more successful than them. And they will hold you back. So again, that's going back to even number one. Unsuccessful people know it's on back. Is there a person that you think is your friend that is holding you back? And so when I talk about having an accountability partner shouldn't be a relative. It shouldn't be your spouse. Accountability partner should be somebody that really doesn't have a lot of control over you, that can be honest with you, but at the same time, you don't have to take their advice. You're not worried about that person or policing that person. So do you have somebody that's holding you back because they're playing the devil's advocate? And then again, not knowing when to let go. You've invested endless hours in a project, you tried different strategies, changing techniques, poured resources, but no matter how hard you try, it's a losing proposition. There comes a time when you need to let it go. Even though the captain of the sinking ship must know when to grab the life preserver, even he needs to know when not to go down with the ship. So sometimes it's hard to walk away from things, especially after I've spent 15 of these things talking about moving forward, positive. But there's sometimes when you have to sit there and recognize that, hey, what I'm doing, the behavior I'm doing isn't working. I've played full out, I've done all of these things, but knowing when to move on, even if it's a job you don't like, you tried it, you tried to improve, whatever it is, a relationship, there's sometimes successful people know when to stop and move on to other things instead of continuing to go forward or not. So again, the most successful behavior that holds people back is being I-centered. The number one problem is that you spend too much time worrying about yourself. The measure of man or a woman is not how much money they make, but how many people they help along the way. Now, never apologize for making money. It's the American way, capitalism works, but it's what I do with that money. Money can't buy me happiness, but I can certainly help more people the more money I have. So are you I-centered? Is it all about you, or is it about how many hit people that you can help? I'll give you a great example. If anybody's heard of BNI, Business Network International, great group. They follow the doctrine of Ralph Waldo Emerson, givers give. The more you give, the more you get in return. And the idea of that is I've some people that didn't renew their membership in the Business International Networking groups because they say, oh, I didn't get anything out of it. Instead of, yeah, but how many people did you help? Do you go to a networking event thinking about what you're going to get out of it? Or just think about how many people you might be able to match up, how many people you might be able to help? What is your frame of mind when you start doing going to a party? Are you going there to tell somebody about your woody woofy? Or are you going there to learn about what theirs is? Are you going there to leave somebody else in a better condition? Or do you hope that you leave with something? Successful people are thinking about other people first, and the end result tends to be that they get the return. And if you haven't ever read Ralph Waldo Emerson's The Law of Giving, it's a great white paper about giving and getting in return. So do you spend too much time thinking about yourself, or you think about how you're helping others? And then last slide is this. I hope that I do this. My acronym for HOPE is help other people every day. Are you starting the day with who can I help today? Or are you starting the day with what can these people that I'm going to meet with today do for me? Can I help other people every day? That's your mantra. That could be your basis of your mission statement is what are you doing to help other people every day? Are you thinking about, can I make a sale today so that I can hit my quota? or boy, I'm going to leave this team, this group, this company in better shape because they saw me today. And that's really the mindset I'm trying to get most people to think about. And I bet most of you can think about somebody else you know that it's always about them. It's about what they can get out of a relationship. It's about what they can get out of a sale, a personal relationship, instead of what they can do for somebody else. Successful people follow that mantra of helping other people every day. All right, that's a lot of win from me, a lot of talk, but those are really my 16 barrier success, what holds people back or what successful people don't do to be successful. And I am starting to lay the groundwork. Next week will be a little repetition, but most of it will be, what are the traits of successful people? What are successful people doing that doesn't hold them back? And then the second week after that, on the 17th, we'll do your personal mission statement and goal setting. Everybody good at that? Comments? Bunch of crap, nothing, an hour of your life you'll never get back, anything? All
I
right.
think it's great. Thank you.
Well, again, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a Zig Ziglar, rah. I'm not here to pump you up. I'm not a guy that lives in a van down by the river. If you remember that analogy from Saturday Night Live. I'm not a motivational speaker because I think motivational speaking lasts about as long as it takes you to get in your car after you've been in a motivational speech. They're great and pump you up, but it doesn't last. These are things that, again, if you did write these down, or if you have to go back to the video later and go back and I have this under control, I don't have this under control, you will basically have a roadmap for maybe 4 or 5 things you want to do differently in 2026. And that's what I hope you do, is that I don't just leave you with motivational speaking that made you feel high for about a week, but doesn't do anything for you for the next year. I hope that you'll take these and apply them to your life for next year. And matter of fact, use these. Maybe you can be a conduit to help somebody else who wasn't on this call. Maybe you can take some of these things to help other people that you know are struggling that could use some of these benefits. So, all right.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, guys. Call me if you need me at any time. Appreciate it. Like Deborah and Mark did yesterday. I want you to call me and we can spend some one-on-one time with you.